Hey everybody, my name is Maverick. Thank you for taking the time to view my first ever YouTube video today. It's kind of been a challenge. I've been trying to record this damn thing for like months, for years, and I finally came across someone that actually gave me that sort of like inspiration to maybe make something and to offer a sort of perspective on pro wrestling from sort of a semi-educated background, I would say. Real quick first, please be sure you like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing more videos of this. Finally, I have a workflow ready to go and I want to start making content, maybe make this into like a thing. Like that would be pretty cool, right? Anyway, wanted to start this off here. I came across a newer YouTuber by the name of dporticus. He put out a couple of videos asking general questions. So this is a bit of a two-parter here. This one is based on this video here that you're seeing is based on the first set of questions that he put out, because I've been trying to make that video for a while. I have them cut and everything, so I want to go ahead and still answer those and give sort of a better sort of answer for that. There's also going to be he also asked a second part of this, so I'm going to be working on that next. I'm actually going to be working on both videos today as of this recording, so we'll see something come out of that. First off, wanted to again mention dporticus. He's a newer fan of pro wrestling. He just started watching WWE for about a couple of years. He watched AEW for a little bit, kind of leaned more towards WWE. Totally fine, it happens. I have my favorites too, you know, like it's not exactly like a bad thing. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna fix this lighting here because this one I could fix, but we're also going to go over that first question of his talking about streaming services. So let's give that a listen.
And the first one is one that I've been kind of struggling with a lot since I've gotten, I should say I've gotten the hang of watching the WWE. Again, if you're new here, I primarily watch WWE pretty much exclusively at this point in terms of watching it on the regular. I watch every SmackDown, every Raw, every PLE, and I do watch some NXT. Usually it's the PLEs, but I've gotten into it a little bit. But other promotions have interested me. I have seen AEW's Double or Nothing, and I'm planning on doing a watch along and watching AEW's All In show. But the issue I'm running into is I am struggling to find a way to keep up with all of these shows at once. Now, I know that they, for the most part, they air on different days of the week, but my question is there a kind of reliable way to keep up with these different shows, maybe from a streaming source? I don't think AEW has a legitimate, I don't think they're on Hulu or anything the way that WWE is so easy to keep up with. Is there a way to kind of keep up with individual shows, whether it be TNA, AEW, New Japan, or whatever? Is there a place where this is kind of condensed down in any way? Or are we kind of all just in a free-for-all of, hey, you got to remember to watch this on Wednesday, you got to remember to watch this on Thursday? I'm just not able to do that. I'm not able to watch them when they're actually playing for the most part. And I haven't seen such an easy access to watching old programs as I've seen with WWE.
All right, so quick answer, no, there's no one place for all of wrestling for WWE and AEW together on one platform. That just doesn't happen. However, that being said, for this recording, we do know there might be something coming down the pike for AEW, possibly going to Max. That's been like the rumor going around, the negotiations happening. So we don't know anything on that just yet. We might find out at All In. But as far as wrestling streaming services go, you do have Triller. That has a lot of pro wrestling on there, including New Japan, MLW, a lot of TNA pay-per-view show up on there. If you pay like about $5 a month, about I want to say $50 a year, they do offer a lot Triller Plus, which gives you more of the GCW events as well as some other wrestling shows that come up premium wise. So I highly recommend you check out Triller. New Japan has their own New Japan World, njpwworld.com. That's about $10 a month. Very much worth it if you plan on keeping up with New Japan and watching all of New Japan Stardom events, as well as Fantastica Mania that just took place back in July, and a lot of the New Japan crossovers would show up on there. I'm not sure how VPNs would work out with that though. I've never really tested that. Next one that I'm thinking of course, WWE's on Peacock. You have New Japan World. You have IWTV, which is another one that's about $5 a month. High spots, but no, that's the problem with streaming, is that everyone wants to go to different platforms and not on the same one. So outside of the dark web setups, you're not going to see that. You're just not going to see everything in one place, unfortunately. But there's a lot of other ways too. Your graphic shows Wow Women of Wrestling. I don't believe they have a streaming service as of yet, outside of your basic cable providers. I know they're on Access TV along with New Japan with their weekly show on there, but Wow Women Wrestling I think is the odd one out in this situation. Ring of Honor Club has it. Watch ROH.com. TNA has TNA Plus, of course. So yeah, there's a lot of different options. There's just no one-stop shop for everything wrestling. So it's just the way the nature of the business goes.
My next question is kind of around branding when it comes to individual wrestlers. I've seen some wrestlers go from one promotion to another. The most recent one that I can think of, or just a big name that I can think of, is Edge going to AEW and changing his name from Edge to Adam Copeland. My question is not just with names, but with other things like theme songs that they have, moves that they do, like their finishers and stuff like that. How much of that is owned by the wrestler? How much of that is something that they can take with them? Is everybody's names owned, or is it only if it's a name that isn't their actual name? Like, I'm assuming Adam Copeland is his actual birth name. I'm assuming, I don't know this to be true, but I'm assuming that if you are using your real name on a promotion, I'm guessing you could take that name and go somewhere else. But if they give you a name that's not actually your name, even if it's a normal sound, like Bailey, even though it's a normal name and not like a catchphrase kind of stage name, I would imagine that stays with the company too. And then I look at things like finishers. This question kind of just spawned for me just watching Daniel Bryan, now Bryan Danielson on AEW. We just watched on the Patreon, and we just watched Daniel Bryan do 2 matches at WrestleMania 30, and then we immediately jumped to watching him face Will Ospreay. So that kind of spawned a question in my head of, when they change their finisher names, is that owned by WWE? Is Daniel Bryan's stuff owned by the WWE, like the name of his finishers as well? Did he have to change it? Is it something that he's choosing to do because he wants there to be some sort of separation between the characters? Because it's not just finishing moves. And I only know this because I actually own the AEW Fight Forever video game. Unfortunately, I paid full price for it. But at the time, I just really wanted to try new wrestling games, so that was what was there. But when I went through the moves and the move sets in that game, I was seeing a lot of moves that I recognized from watching WWE, but they had completely different names. And I didn't really think about it. I didn't really think much of it at the time. But now that I started thinking of the finisher names changing, I'm realizing how many move names seem to have changed from one show to the other. Why? Is it ownership, or is it intentional trying to separate yourself?
Okay, so this next question has to deal with branding and guys taking their names outside of WWE and all that. That's sort of been a thing that they've had for a while. Usually if someone comes in with an already established name, they work their hardest to just fix or repackage that wrestler into like a new sort of name that fits into a narrative of what they want as far as storyline goes. If they're waiting for a story or something, they want to be able to re-identify them so that way they can be a character that comes in with this big sort of thing. But that being said, they did make a change that if a wrestler comes in, I mean, they did make a change that if a wrestler leaves WWE, they may have the option to keep the name. But we have seen established wrestlers coming into WWE, Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Roderick Strong, Adam Cole, baby. Even now, it does look like those are changing, but right now, branding was more of a thing. It's kind of like it was famously like stolen from the Dudley Boys when they went with WWE. I guess part of that deal was that Paul Heyman signed over the rights for that. So, but no, like I said, like that kind of thing is changing now, especially with Vince McMahon gone. Of course, he's been real petty about trying to get ownership of everything. So this definitely would be one of the bigger changes that WWE is actively working on, and that's kind of shocking to say.
Next question is more of a discussion that I would like to have in general. I'll be looking for these ones especially in the comments because I would love to know what your perception is on a face versus a heel. I've seen a lot of people say a certain person's going to turn face or they're going to turn heel, but the reality is I'm not 100% sure. Is there a definition of what makes someone a face or a heel? Because in my definition, when I look at a face or a heel, I'm thinking more of what their character's intentions are, if it is an evil or good guy type of intention. But I see a lot of other people use the crowd reaction to define if somebody is a face or a heel. If you get a lot of cheers, you're a face, and if you get booed, you're getting heat as a good heel. But that logic falls off the tracks when I start thinking of specific instances like Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley gets a pop every time her music hits, every time she goes out in the ring. The crowd reaction is that she would be a babyface. But her character intentions are definitely more on the evil side, maybe not so much super recently with everything going on with Dom, but prior to that, she is definitely on the bad guy side, the interfering with matches and causing people to lose like a heel. That's kind of where my logic of, I feel like it's more what the character's intent is and not crowd reaction. The other example I can think of is people saying that Roman Reigns is going to come back as a face. Some people will hear that and say, well, Roman's never going to go back to being a face. He's going to stick with the tribal chief. But I think he would technically still come back as a face. He's going to get the crowd pop, but I'm not basing it off of that. I'm basing it off of his intentions are going to feel more rooted in a protagonist kind of way. You imagine if we understand the story and how it's probably going to go, he's going to go after a Solo Sikoa who is clearly a heel, taking away the bloodline, attacking a defenseless Paul Heyman, things like that. So there's a clear heel and face separation. But I know I'm overcomplicating this when I say it's almost like you could still see Roman as an overall heel as the tribal chief, because everything he's done, you imagine he's still going to be in support of. He's still going to want to take out Cody. You know what I mean? Like, it's confusing. It's like he would have short-term babyface intentions, but he's still overall a heel. Am I making this way too complicated? Is it not that big a deal? Am I overthinking the face or heel kind of thing?
This next question has to do with basically the dynamic of baby faces and heels. It's, of course, good guy versus bad guy, classic tale of which side is going to stand tall, be the last man standing. We know the differences nowadays. It's not a secret, but they don't have any perpetual faces and heels much anymore. It always flip-flops, and to validate your thought, yeah, it's the intention, it's the direction in which the storyline goes. So it can change at any moment with anybody, and it could depend on it. In WWE, it's more connected through story. Liv Morgan getting involved with Dom, and then all of a sudden Dom turns on Rhea at SummerSlam. In AEW, it's more of consequential circumstances where you are relying more on tournaments, on breakout tournaments, battle royales, gauntlet matches, ladder matches, the C2, the Continental Classic that just happened last year, which gave Eddie Kingston the Continental title before he lost it to Okada. So a lot of it's definitely more intentional on the storyline and the direction in which they want to put wrestlers in roles that's behind the scenes. Yeah, that's, if you want to get that far into it, you know, hey, be my guest. It's a world, man. But it definitely depends on what the intention of the character, with all the writers and all that in the back. Of course, you know, it's WWE, it's a show, in which that direction goes. So I mean, it's pretty simple. But yeah, in WWE, like I said, it's more story based, connecting to characters, rather than AEW and New Japan and AAA and all the other guys out there, where it's more tournament based or circumstantial as far as the outcome of the matches are concerned.
Okay, this next one's more of a personal one. I want to know, in general, I guess if you know what the WWE marks it as, but I think I've kind of picked up that on my own. But in terms of measuring wrestler success, now this could go for any show. Maybe it's actually different from show to show. I guess I wouldn't know yet. But when they're measuring success in someone being like the GOAT or having titles, where do you put the value? Is it in total title, like individual wins? Is it in total days? Because you could make arguments against both. You could make arguments that if you have 15 title wins, then unless you're still holding it, you technically also lost the title 15 times. You could technically have 15 title wins over the span of a month if for some reason you and an opponent kept going back and forth. Does that suddenly make you the most prestigious wrestler when you only held it for a total of maybe 20 days? Then on the other hand, you'd think, okay, you can combat that by saying, well, look how many days they held it, how many times they actually, or how long they actually protected it. But then you're going to get the very quick argument that look at a Logan Paul, look at what Roman Reigns was doing. Does it really hold that much value if you're holding it and only defending it once every 2, 3, 4 months? My personal answer is I kind of wish you could just measure in title defenses. Like, think about it. It's almost like that would be the only way that I could see a measurement of them not just holding onto the title, but preventing someone from taking it from them. So I don't know, is there a stat for that kind of thing? Is that kept as a separate stat? Because I don't see them kind of advertise that. They don't show Roman Reigns has defended the title 25 or 30 or whatever times. It seems like, at least from the WWE's perspective, it's usually marked in days or total times winning, which I feel like it's almost like they say how many times they've won if they're not currently the champion. I wish somebody could create like a mathematic formula, put how many victories they've had or how many times they have taken the title, how many times they've defended it, and then in parentheses like total days. Like, there's somebody needs to figure out a GOAT formula for like all of these stats that we can use to measure and get something more accurate.
That's actually a very good question. How do we value the champions in terms of precedent, in terms of prestige? Is it by the amount of times they won the belt, or or how long they've held the belt? Personally, I'm a how long they held the belt kind of guy. I know a lot of wrestling fans of my sort of hardcore Okada shirt wearing, you know, fandom is directed. Since after CM Punk left WWE, I started watching more New Japan. I started watching more of the different styles of New Japan and Mexico, and just seeing some great stuff on a lot of wrestling. Hell, even in Russia, I found a wrestler in Russia I was following for a while. It's crazy, but there's always a lot of differences in terms of how a champion is held, and it depends on the wrestler. Ric Flair, 16-time world champion. Some of those reigns lasted months. A couple of them lasted I want to say a couple of years. But he's held the damn belt so much. Oh, hello. He's held the damn belt so much that he's only like he'd only hold it for like up to like what, 2 years at a couple of points too. So but that's Ric Flair. In Ric Flair's case, if you look at guys like Bruno Sammartino, held it for thousands of days. CM Punk held the WWE title for 434 days. So, or even Gunther now holding the Intercontinental title for 666 days, and just like the length of it definitely means a lot. More than, to me, it means more than the amount of time. But nowadays we're seeing more title defenses being successful. We're seeing more of that length growing. Ring of Honor had times like that where someone's holding it for, you know, 780 days or 1206 days or something like that. Like they're like, you can get some good title runs if you have the good wrestling to back it up. Ric Flair, to me, when it comes to his 16-time world championships, to me, those were like, out of all of those reigns, they were like 3 or 4 storylines out of all that. So it depends. So the title defenses depend on the story. The heel face dynamic depends on the story. The championship reign can depend on the story, but also can be a continuation of it. So there's a lot of variables to go for that. But for value's sake, for this argument, I personally would pick the length of the championship rather than the amount of times it is won. Because you're right. Ric Flair is a 16-time world champion, and he lost it 15 times. So there you go.
All right, my last question. This is based on the fact that I just watched the Bryan Danielson match and Will Ospreay match that apparently only took place a few months ago on AEW Dynasty. Now, spoilers, the match ends with Will Ospreay winning and Bryan Danielson selling an injury. Really selling an injury. And I had a little bit of an issue with it. I'm going to be completely honest. As much as I love injury selling, and I think that is a great part, that acting is a very important part of wrestling, he started to do, talking about Bryan, he started to do some stuff with his hands that, and just the way he was holding his neck or his head, it was kind of selling a brain injury. Now, for me personally, I don't love that. I don't think selling a brain injury is for me. I think that's just crossing the line, only because I want to be enjoying myself. Being pulled into a moment of genuinely wondering, oh my God, is his career over? Is he good? Is a little bit too much for me personally. Not against, anybody else enjoying it who still enjoys that, but it's just not for me. So that brings my question to, is there a reliable way to know if an injury is real, whether it be in the moment on the screen or somewhere reliable online? It's tough to tell online what sort of news sources are keeping the kayfabe alive and which ones are giving me just actual answers that I want to know about the wrestlers, the real wrestlers, and know if they're okay. Now, before anyone says it, I understand there at least at some point was this throwing up the X that referees could do. But apparently, I've looked into that, and apparently there have been moments where they have thrown the X up and it was part of a sell. And I think the moment you abuse the trust of the X, it's almost like having the X was kind of like a nice message of, hey, everyone, we don't want to say something over the microphone right now, but this is kind of serious. We need to take care of this. And the moment you break that trust and put the X up and it's part of a story or it's part of a sell, well, now it's just pointless. That you can never trust it again, right? So I guess I'm asking, as a fan that doesn't want to see their favorite wrestlers get injured and does get concerned when something looks particularly dangerous or maybe a move missed or they landed kind of funky, is there something now that you can look for as a reliable signal, maybe during the show, as a signal that, hey, no, they wouldn't normally do that. That means they're probably injured, or at least somewhere reliable on the internet or something. Do they do any sort of releases that are out of character to make it clear this person is fine, this person is injured?
All right, home stretch. We got the last one. This one's kind of a dark one here. Injuries. Man, you hate to see them. Injuries are the worst. Like when you see it happen, you most likely know something is up. And 9 times out of 10, it's kind of true. I've seen wrestlers get hurt. I've read about wrestlers dying in the ring, legit death. I've seen, hell, I've almost seen Seth Rollins get impaled by the cage as it was coming down. Like, there's so much that can happen, has happened, that can most likely happen inside of a pro wrestling ring, and it's never fun. Usually when you see this come up, someone's hurt to the point where they need help. That's supposed to be the real injury that is happening. For what we know, I know when you in your video you mentioned Daniel Bryan and Will Ospreay. Hell of a match. I highly recommend it. You guys should just totally watch it. Insane. But he played up but Will Ospreay played up the fact that he would not do the Tiger Driver 91 again because of the injury that it was sustained on Daniel Bryan, supposedly, or Bryan Danielson. And he doesn't get enough credit for the acting. And dporticus mentioned that he was portraying like what it looked like for CTE, like a head injury, CTE angle. And my response to especially that part is that wrestlers get hurt all the time. That's the nature of the game. Every wrestler goes into a match hurt. Every wrestler comes out just hurting a little bit more than they were yesterday. That's just the game. When talking about head injuries happen more often than not. Why is it okay in football when a football player gets injured, but when a wrestler gets injured in the head, people get uncomfortable? That just happens. Just like in football, it just happens. It's the fact that, you know, they're fighting, they're doing a show about fighting and not throwing a ball around. A lot of it can happen. I've seen people get knocked out cold in the ring because something on the ring messed up. So there's quite a bit that goes on. As someone that has worked wrestling shows and has done commentary and has helped with tech and especially helped dismantle and build a pro wrestling ring, which is actually really nice kind of setup when you think about it. There's just so much that can go wrong at any given time. And that's what makes wrestling great, is that you never know that even if it's scripted, something can happen. So there you go. All right, guys, that was the first set of questions by dporticus. Quick, just a sort of a way to end it here. I am a professional wrestling fan ever since I was a kid, ever since the 80s, 90s. I grew up watching the whole industry sort of flourish into what it is now. And I know a lot of people can legit come on here and just say that. So take that for what you will. I'm not a professional wrestler. At most, I am a commentator. I watch the shows, I narrate the stories. I also have a wrestling podcast. Hey, great segue. Wanted to let you guys know about my podcast, Hard Way, a pro wrestling story, over at Rival Forge Wrestling. We're going to be changing that channel up here, hopefully very soon. I got to get the media off of the old channels and all that. So a lot of stuff to work on, a lot of things to sort of push out there. But please, guys, make sure you like and subscribe this video below. I would definitely appreciate it. This is my first YouTube video. Second one's on the way. Stay tuned for that, guys. I am excited. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you guys in the next one.